Hey y'all, remember when Kevin Albert was put on paid leave back in June, one day after Proctor testified? Well, guess what? According to Christina Rex, she can confirm that Kevin Albert is back on the job. Oh boy, do we have tons to talk about in today's video. Hello, 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 and welcome to Alexa's Room, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, we are not law enforcement, we are just people. People who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including this report that came out earlier today by Christina Rex, the same reporter that sat down with Paul O'Keefe directly following the declaration of the mistrial. She goes on to say, I can confirm that Kevin Albert is back on the job. Canton Chief, our favorite chief, Chief Helena Rafferty, the Wicked Witch of Canton, says, we are committed to making the independent investigation records available as soon as the other investigations are completed, meaning other IA investigations at the MSP. Because remember, folks, our good friend Yuri Buchanan, who just can't stop knocking on people's doors because he apparently has nothing better to do with his time. He's still under investigation, and so is our friend Trooper Pooper Proctor, who we talked about in yesterday's video. And if you didn't catch that, I will link that at the very end of this video so you can catch up. Now, this first came up, actually, this was first addressed at the very beginning of last night's Canton Select Board meeting. The Young Jerks do a great job of streaming that and making that available. The town of Canton put out a statement in result of the investigation into Detective Kevin Albert. Remember, this was directly following Proctor's testimony back in June. He was immediately, I think it was one day after or something like that, one day after Proctor testifies, Helena Rafferty's like, yeah, that whole thing about you drunkenly leaving your badge and your firearm and not knowing where you happened to put it, not really a good thing. So it's probably better if we just kind of put you off to the side and take away that spotlight for a minute. But we did not forget. No, we did not. It's unclear what the disciplinary action will be. Christina Rex and many other reporters are definitely digging into this. So as we get more answers, I will be sharing with you guys here on Alexa's Room. But this is the statement that they put out, and we'll play the clip. So this is what they had to say. The town of Canton. Resolution reached in Canton police personnel matter. The Canton Police Department hired an independent investigator who conducted a thorough investigation of the allegations of misconduct by Detective Albert. Again, we have no idea exactly what those allegations were directly related to, if that had to do with the comments that Proctor testified to in the trial, one can assume, or if there's more to it. If there's, and I'm sure there is, because where there's smoke, there is fire, right? But it's a really vague statement because, hey, transparency, what is that, right? Um, Following the investigation, the select board reviewed the report and had an opportunity to question the investigator, whoever the heck they were, right? And Detective Albert about the scope. Sorry, my hair's like flurrying everywhere. And Detective Albert about the scope and sufficiency of the investigation, as well as the substance of the allegations. So, I mean, talk about lack of substance. I mean, there is no substance to this lackluster statement that they put out because we don't know, one, again, were those because of the allegations that were made during the trial, or is it that encompassed with something completely different? One has to speculate, but that's just my opinion. But who's this third party, or who's this independent investigator? I mean, that just sounds so mysterious and evasive, and it feels kind of like a put off, almost like a distraction of, yeah, we hired this third party person so you can trust that we weren't picking somebody from our own department. But I feel like that's a statement you make when you do pick somebody from your department and you want to brush things under the rug really, really quickly. But hey, that's just my opinion. The select board voted that discipline be imposed by the chief of police. Great, because we know that's going to be a real slap on the wrist, which Detective Albert has accepted. So what did she say? Like no drinking while driving? Like that should be pretty obvious. Or don't forget to um don't misplace your firearm and badge. Like maybe don't ask your friends to leave them in mailboxes for you. I don't know. That's just, I mean, that seems like common sense to me. But again, who knows? We don't know what this disciplinary action is because they didn't tell us. Select board member Chris Albert recused himself from the hearing. So I'm assuming they're talking about the disciplinary action, which was not streamed last night during the Canton Select Board meeting. So those were two separate events, two separate meetings. So who knows if she's going to pony up and we're actually going to learn what these records are. But people are going to keep asking about them. And just because you put out a blanket statement like this doesn't mean that people are going to shut up. In fact, they're going to get even louder. So now I want to pull up a clip from the Canton Select Board meeting. Again, compliments to the Young Jerks for providing this stream every single week, or not every single week, but every single meeting. It's important, and it reminds us all that this is stuff that's available in every community, and we should all be attending things like these in our own communities as well too, because the stuff, trust, is not just going on in Canton. So let's hear Mike Loughran address this.
The next statement is a statement on Detective Kevin Albert. So the select board would like to inform the public that a resolution has been reached in the Canton Police personnel matter. The Canton Police Department hired an independent investigator who conducted a thorough investigation of the allegations of misconduct by Detective Albert. Following the investigation, the select board reviewed the report and had an opportunity to question the investigator and Detective Albert about the scope and sufficiency of the investigation, as well as the substance of the allegations. The select board voted that the discipline be imposed by the chief of police, which Detective Albert has accepted. Select board member Chris Albert recused himself from the hearing. All right.
And that's it. Then that's it. Like, you can't start a meeting like that and then be like, yeah, nobody's going to ask us questions about this. Now, no, they used to hold these meetings in person, but as of recently, and by recently, I mean over the last several weeks, potentially, I think maybe even over a month now, they've been doing it via Zoom. One has to wonder why. Pretty much after, I believe, that meeting where Chris Albert gave that fake apology about his behavior in that Turtle Boy video, where he was essentially saying, hey, I'm going to drag you up and down the street. If I could do that, I would drag you up and down the street, essentially is what he said. I'm paraphrasing here. You can go check that video out on Turtle Boy's channel. So I want to fast forward because Rita Lombardi, again, one of the Cantonites who has been very vocal during these meetings, unashamedly and, amazingly, like, speaking up for what she feels is right, and calling crap out and doing digging. And, props to her, because she's a total freaking bad mamma jamma. So
Okay, can you hear me?
this is Rita.
Yep.
Mike, can you hear me? Okay, can I just ask a quick question? You said Kevin Albert accepted his punishment or whatever it was. Are we going to know what that was? Is somebody going to tell us what his...
So, Ms. Lombardi, as I said, this is not a question and answer. I would just refer you back to our statement.
Oh, okay, but you didn't tell us. I mean, I'm just asking this, the statement seemed incomplete is why I'm.
So, just to clarify, they essentially give this disclaimer at the beginning of, hey, the public comment section is going to be only 15 minutes. Each person has 3 minutes to make their point, which I believe was the same kind of situation back in when they were holding the meetings live. But now I feel like they've closed these public comment portion of the meeting, which one of the most essential parts of this meeting, because you're opening the floor for your people to talk to you on a platform and for you to listen. So they give that disclaimer of, hey, you only have 3 minutes each, but we're limiting it to 15 minutes. I mean, last time I checked, 5 times 3 is 15. So only 5 people out of what, 50 to 100 people who are tuning into this thing and want to participate, only 5 people get to speak and share their thoughts and opinions. Because the only other time they get to ask questions is if it's relevant and pertinent to a specific item that they're addressing. So she's asking, hey, can you just elaborate a little bit and just say, hey, is this going to be available to us in the future? And according to that Christina Rex comment report, she did say that Helena Rafferty from her desk, right, creeping on because she doesn't like to show face and make public statements or attend these meetings, right? She doesn't like to talk to her people, hides behind her desk and says something to the effect of, the records will be made available as soon as these other investigations are completed. I mean, what a load of BS. And if they are ever made available, I'm sure that it's going to be heavily redacted, or they're only going to give little crumbs here and there. But again, that's just my opinion. So let's hear more from Rita.
I'm asking that question. So the town is not
Okay.
going to be transparent and tell us that. Is that correct?
The select board has made a statement, and that's what we're referring to.
Okay, so, all right, so if my 3 minutes can stop, because I was asking to try to just get the rest of that, I just want to.
You got 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
So he totally cuts into her time. She has more to say on this, and I'm going to go back to her clip in a little bit, but I want to go over the rest of this Kevin Albert stuff before we dive into our next portion of this, because it's all relative. A lot happened last night at the Canton Select Board meeting, so I highly encourage y'all to check out the stream from the Young Jerks. But let's go through this Boston Herald's article that was published earlier today. So, Canton Police Lieutenant Kevin Albert was disciplined based on verbal report into misconduct allegations. So, this is our boy, Kevin A. Yay. Yeah, this was just a couple hours ago. Okay. Canton Police Detective Kevin Albert, placed on paid administrative leave back in June, faces additional discipline following an investigation into misconduct allegations and undisclosed punishment based on a verbal report. I mean, this is also too like hem and a hair. We do not possess a copy of the investigative report as of yet, Town Administrator Charles Duty told the Herald on Wednesday afternoon. The report was presented verbally by the independent outside investigator, because that doesn't sound sus, an executive session with the Canton Select Board. So my question is there actually a report? Because if there was a report, why wasn't it shared? At the very least, with the town administrator, like at least with this dude, and if there is a report, who was it shared with? Was it shared with the Canton Select Board? But is there even an investigative report? Would be my question. And maybe there is. And maybe the records will be available. Maybe we'll all get to read that report. And if it comes out, we will hear. But this is very concerning, but not shocking. So let's continue. We are committed to making these records available when it is appropriate to do so. So again, this seems verbatim the same statement that Helena Rafferty made to Christina Rex. I don't know if she made that to her directly or what, but that was what she reported on what we read before. And this is pretty much verbatim the same exact response that she gave is we're going to make these available when it makes sense, when the internal affairs investigations are completed. Town Records Access Officer Tracy Kenny told the Herald that the outside investigator met with the select board in executive session on Tuesday, hours before the board convened in public. Select Board Chairman Michael Loughran, reading from a prepared statement at the beginning of the virtual meeting yesterday, revealed that a resolution had been reached in a Canton police personnel matter, which we just watched. The specific nature of Albert's discipline and when it was handed out are unclear. Again, we don't even know. And Mike Crawford from the Young Turks has pointed this out because, again, a lot of us are speculating it has to do with Proctor's testimony. But again, I believe where there's smoke, there's fire. And it's probably not just about that. But now that he's been put on blast, he's been put under a magnifying glass. It was televised to not just the people of Canton, but to the entire world. You have hundreds of people tuning in. Thousands, actually, that's conservative. Let's be real. Thousands of people tuning in on multiple different platforms, right? Multiple different channels. How many YouTubers were streaming that trial, myself included? How many people were streaming that freaking trial and looking at these people and being like, what the heck is going on? So one has to speculate that's got something to do with it. But I mean, I can't imagine that's the only thing or the only time that those things happen. And when it was handed out are unclear, with Loughran referring to the statement when community members, Rita Lombardi, pressed him for details during public comment. Statement in full reads, so we just read this and heard it. He recused himself. So again, during this executive session, who knows if that's true? I mean, it's really hard to believe anything these people say, but who knows, right? Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, I suppose. Select board meetings continue to be held virtually, a decision that Loughran said in August. So yeah, this has been going on for a little bit over a month. Ensures business can run safely and efficiently. I mean, it seemed like it was pretty safe until people started putting hands on, I don't know, the people of Canton. So that's when it became, I don't know, maybe a little bit crazier, is because of your lack of transparency and accountability. And this is my whole thing too, is like, if you want people to stop coming at you, then give them answers. Answer their questions. Take what they have to say seriously and do something about it. Like, I don't understand. Why is that so hard? The solution is not to ignore the problem and to run away and hide behind your computer screen and feel like you're doing something by pouring more money into what, like the hockey rink or whatever. And it's like, come on now. People don't care about that. They don't care about that. Yeah, the move came after a series of chaotic scenes at Town Hall amid the continuing Karen Reed unaliving case at Norfolk Superior Court. Rafferty placed the detective who earned, and this is something that Rita, we're going to jump back to that select board meeting clip in 1 second, who earned $176,000 in total pay. Like, let that sink in. In pay last year, unpaid administrative leave the day after embattled Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor testified in the trial in June. Canton officials waited a month to publicize Albert's leave. And I remember that. We're like, wait, hold on. This guy's been on paid leave for weeks. And now the trial's over. And you're like, oh, hey, by the way, guys. Like days after the trial ended. By the way, this guy's been on paid leave. Okay, hope you guys are having a fun summer. Like, what? I mean, it's so insane to me. It's so insane. The outside independent investigation, like we said, relative to Albert's action in a case he investigated with Trooper Proctor approximately 2 years ago, also became known at the time. So, I mean, again, we kind of know, but we don't know the specifics. Like, it's so vague, and it's like, again, does it have to do loosely with that cold case I think that Proctor said that they were working on together? I don't know. But I mean, that would definitely be an example of misconduct, is misplacing your badge and your firearm. That seems like kind of a big deal. And if that's, I can't imagine that's the only thing. Proctor pulled off duty the day, he was pulled off duty the day after, which we know we talked about, and later was suspended without pay. He testified that he and Albert had worked together on a cold case together. Yep. And they were drinking buddies. Defense attorney Alan Jackson, during Proctor's testimony, took exception to text messages the two exchanged the morning after a night of drinking in July 2022, in which Albert had asked if he left his badge and GUN in Proctor's cruiser. And it's so ironic because it's like now Aidan Carney came out with the second part of his interview with the second juror, the EMT, who said that everybody on the jury was like, I can't believe all these people were doing this. We're drinking and driving, but because these people are cops, they must know what they're doing, so they're doing it responsibly, right? And like, how messed up that is. They get a hall pass because they're cops, so you can do that safely? Like that? No, that's not the example you set for young people or for your community. No, like it's okay if you have a badge, right? It's fine. But if you don't and you're Karen Reed, then it's a problem. Then you can't do it. It's like it's a no-go for anybody. Like, period, end of story. That's why we have laws in place. But I digress. From what I remember, we were down on the Cape. So this is, again, what Proctor was saying. Working on a cold case together, and I stopped for dinner, had a few beers, and then dropped him off. Proctor also acknowledged that he and Albert communicated about coordinating aspects of the Reed case, even though Canton Police Department recused itself from the investigation due to the Albert brothers' connection to the case. Kevin Albert did not take the stand. Yeah, so he didn't take the stand during that trial. I'm curious if he will in this trial, if they'll be added to the defense witness list. So I want to go next to this clip of Proctor's testimony, talking a little bit more about our friend, Detective Kevin Albert.
About this
Here we go.
at some length. Conflicted off the case as of January 29th, 2022, right?
Correct.
And you even put it in that text message, NOGCAT, it's total opposite. They have to recuse themselves, BPD. Same with Canton, right?
Yes.
Those are your words on January 29th, right?
Yes.
And you knew that one of the reasons for Canton PD to recuse itself is because of the relationship between the Alberts and one of the detectives on Canton PD, Kevin Albert, right?
Correct.
You knew that Kevin Albert was the primary source of the conflict, correct?
Yes.
And you knew that he, above everybody else, should be completely removed from any contact with the investigation or the investigators, right?
Correct.
Yet when you wanted to coordinate witnesses for interviews in this case, Who'd you turn to?
I texted Kevin Albert to see if he could secure a conference room for us to conduct interviews at the station.
The same Kevin Albert to help coordinate these witness interviews, who's the brother of Brian Albert, right?
Yes.
If you could turn to tab 13, please. Your Honor, for the court's edification, it should be III.
All right, thank you.
Then India.
Thank you.
Do you have that in front of you, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, I do.
If you'll turn to page 2591. With the court's permission, I'd like to publish.
Okay.
Can you see that on January 30th, 2022, at about 11:55 a.m., Kevin Albert texts you on your personal cell phone, Paul G. is reviewing the reports now. Steve Seraph is here if you need to interview him. And we can call Stephen Mullaney in as well, end quote. You see that?
Yes.
Who's Paul G?
I'm muted. So he's about to ask him, who's Paul G? You're going to find out who Paul G is. And remember that name when we flip back to the Canton Select Board meeting clip that we're going to play in just a moment.
G.
Lieutenant Paul Gallagher.
So Kevin Albert, a Canton PD officer, and an Albert is texting you about Paul Gallagher, another Canton officer, about interviewing Steve Seraph, another Canton officer, and Steve Mullaney, a second Canton officer, correct?
Correct.
What investigation was Kevin Albert referring to in the text?
The death of John O'Keefe.
This investigation. Right?
Correct.
Did you tell Kevin Albert it's completely inappropriate for him to be involved in this case at all?
I did not.
Did you tell him he shouldn't be having any contact with any of the witnesses, and he shouldn't even be having contact with you? Did you tell him that?
I did not.
What you did write back was, quote, okay, you and I are coming in at 1 to interview a firefighter, Katie, correct?
That's right.
So not only did you tell him that you were engaged in the process of obtaining interviews.
And remember, Katie McLaughlin is who? Friends with Caitlin Albert, another Albert clan member. So as you can see, the ties run deep. And I know a lot of you who have been following my content have been following the story, but I know that there's a lot of new people here who are new to the case. So, and there's a lot of people involved. So I will connect the dots for you and reiterate and remind where we can.
You told him the name of the interviewee, right?
Yes.
And you were going to do it at Canton PD, correct?
Correct.
So you're sharing information about the identity of witnesses that you intend to interview with Brian Albert's brother, right?
Yes.
Then you asked Kevin Albert to actually contact the witnesses in order to schedule their interviews, didn't you?
Yeah, I believe it was Officer Mullaney and Seraph.
Turn to page 2592. Kevin Albert texts, okay, so I'll get Mullaney in as well. You interviewing her here? And you respond, yeah, if we can line them up for 1:30 and 2, that would be great, correct?
Yes.
So you were leaving it up to Kevin Albert to contact and coordinate with the witnesses that you intended to interview at Canton PD, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Correct.
You then answered anytime in the ballpark. I'm sorry. Yes, you answered anytime in the ballpark. Then you went on and said from 1:30 on, correct?
Yes.
Kevin Albert then says, okay, sounds good. And then he responds, if you want to interview witnesses in the recorded room here, you're more than welcome. You see that?
I do.
He was referring to an interview room or an interrogation room where there's surreptitious recording devices, correct?
Yes,
That's to help facilitate memorializing interviews that police officers want to take with any witness in a crime, right?
correct.
That would mean that if you used a recorded room, those recordings would be in the hands of which agency?
That's why we did not use that recorded room.
But he offered, didn't he?
He offered, we did not use it.
Did you see that as a problem?
That he offered?
Yeah.
No, I don't, sir.
You see that as a problem because he might, I don't know, take some of those interviews and forward them to his brother?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Were you concerned that Kevin Albert was offering to utilize Canton's recording programs facility in order to get access to what the witnesses were saying so that he could then forward that or tell his brother?
No,
Never crossed your mind.
never.
Well, if it never crossed your mind, why didn't you go ahead and use the recording you were?
Typically don't record our interviews.
That's not what you said a second ago. You said the reason we didn't use the recording.
Which is like also concerning, is it not? That you don't record your witness interviews? It's just like going back to this testimony because there is so much when you're going through the trial in real time that you don't always absorb. But this was always a stick out moment for me is like, what do you mean you don't record your interviews typically? So then, like, what do you do to get an accurate transcript of what was said? You write it down the old fashioned way on a notepad? Like, come on now.
Room is because of the obvious possibility that Kevin Albert and Canton PD could have access to the recordings.
Objection.
Sustained.
Didn't you say that's why we didn't use it?
No.
That was your answer, right?
No,
What did you say?
that we didn't use it. You,
When I said, if you made a recording, it would be in the hands of which agency? Obviously Canton PD. And your answer was, that's why we didn't use the recorded room, right?
no, I don't recall saying that's why we didn't use the room.
You just said it to Proctor. I mean, it's been 10 minutes, it's been 4 minutes.
No,
You don't remember that?
not specifically stated like that.
All right, let me ask you a different way. If you weren't concerned that the interviews could be compromised by Canton PD and Kevin Albert, why didn't you just use the room? It was offered up.
Again, typically we don't record interviews. With a cooperating witness, we just sit down with them, take notes. If it's someone we deem necessary to actually have a recording of, then we'll pursue that option.
Trooper Proctor, after you knew that Canton Police Department was conflicted off the case, you continued to have a very close relationship with yet another Albert, Kevin Albert, correct?
We worked on a cold case together.
So you did have a close personal and professional relationship with Kevin Albert, didn't you?
I'd say it was a professional relationship.
Only a professional relationship?
Him and I were members at a gym together, and we worked a cold case together for several months,
Drinking, socializing, maybe?
once in a while.
Right. So it went beyond professional, right?
Yeah, acquaintances.
Drinking acquaintances, right?
On several occasions, yes.
Socializing acquaintances, right?
On several occasions.
So when you told the jury a few minutes ago that you were aware of and knew of, but didn't have relationships with 3 Alberts, Julie, Chris, and Colin, not quite true, is it?
Objection.
Sustained.
There's a 4th Albert out there, isn't there? Kevin. Right?
Yes.
But you didn't tell us about that one,
Objection.
I'll allow it.
correct?
I don't consider that a relationship. It's,
Well, let's look at that. 5 months into this investigation, in July of 2022, you were actually continuing to socialize with Kevin Albert, weren't you?
yes,
On July 19th, 2022, you and Kevin Albert went out drinking together, didn't you? Trooper Proctor, I'm not asking you to look for anything in the binder at this point. I'm asking for your memory.
I don't recall that.
You don't recall the date, or you don't recall
July 19th, 2022.
you don't recall the drinking?
The date itself, sir.
Why don't we turn to tab 13?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a number or a letter?
We're still in tab 13. Are we still in tab 13?
All right, so what page, Mr. Jackson?
Page 2602. May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Trooper Proctor, are you on 2602?
I am.
The fact of the matter, does that refresh your recollection that on July 19th, 2022, you and Kevin Albert have been out drinking together?
It does.
In fact, the two of you got so drunk that Kevin Albert left his badge in your cruiser and couldn't find his gun the next morning, right?
Objection.
Overruled.
I can't speak to any level of intoxication, but I don't recall either of us being intoxicated.
Got it. So isn't it true that on 7/20, July 20th, 2022, the day after at 8:39 in the morning, you texted Kevin Albert?
Now, I also just want to pull out, like, really quickly too, because in the moment when you're watching these trials, sometimes dates and stuff kind of go in one ear, out another ear. But it's really interesting because this is approximately 6 months after John O'Keefe is found on Kevin Albert's brother, Brian Albert's front lawn, and kickstarted this investigation. Now, I'm curious why, and this is a question I didn't ask myself at the time, because this was technically, I mean, they had already arrested her, they had already charged her with this. So I guess in that regard, it wouldn't be a conflict of interest, but I'm curious how he got to work on a cold case with Kevin Albert when this was still all going on just 6 months later. And when? Because he said they were working on this cold case together for months, for like a few months. So I wonder when that cold case started, how close it was to this investigation, and if that would technically be a conflict of interest, or because, and again, I'm just asking questions. I don't know. I'm not accusing or saying anything. I'm just asking questions because I'm genuinely curious if that would be a conflict of interest of him working with Kevin Albert specifically on a cold case 6 months after the fact of this investigation, where both his brothers are witnesses and potentially involved.
Quote, found your badge in my cruiser this morning, end quote, correct?
Yes.
Then you texted him, I can leave it in my locker at the gym, drop it off at your station, or leave it in my mailbox, correct?
Correct.
Kevin Albert responds, my mailbox. Did I take my gun? And then included a wince face emoji, correct?
Correct.
So the fact of the matter is, you two got so drunk that he couldn't find his badge and had to ask you the next morning where his gun was, right?
Again, I can't speak to any level of intoxication, whether he just forgot it. I don't
I'm
know.
not asking you about his BAC Trooper Proctor. I'm asking, have you seen drunk people before?
Yes.
You've been drunk before.
Yes, I have, sir.
We've all been drunk before, right?
Yes.
Was he drunk? Were you drunk that night?
I don't recall. It was a long time ago.
But he left his badge in your cruiser after a night of drinking. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Which means you were drinking and driving in your cruiser. Right?
From what I remember, we were down the Cape working on the cold case together and
Yeah.
stopped for dinner,
6 months
had a
later.
few beers, and then dropped him off.
The next morning,
I
Kevin Albert
find
also texted you,
bizarre.
page 2606. See that. Starting with it's bad. Tell me when you see that.
Okay, I see it.
Now I may publish.
Yes.
2606, please. It's bad! Exclamation point, exclamation point. I was hungover for sure today! Exclamation point, exclamation point. Couple tonight to make me feel good. End quote. Correct?
Correct.
You can take that down. Does that refresh your recollection? The two of you had been out drinking the night before. He got so drunk that he couldn't find his badge and he couldn't even find his gun.
Yes, it does refresh my memory.
Right. And you're in your cruiser. Right?
Yes, sir.
And this is with Brian Albert's brother, Cooper Proctor.
Correct.
So there you have that. So I wanted to just jump back to that clip because, again, for those of you who are just diving into this case and are a little confused on the familial ties and the connections, the loose acquaintances, if you will, now I hope you have a deeper understanding. One has to speculate, okay, does it have to directly do with that particular testimony? Or is there more? And I feel like there's more. And it could just be more of the same behavior. But it is interesting. The whole offering up, well, you can use the recorded rooms. And then Proctor saying, well, we don't always record witness testimony. Which I mean, we're well aware of that, but anyways, I digress. So let's jump back to the Canton Select Board meeting because we learned something interesting about our friend Paul Gallagher and some of the other Canton police officers.
Okay. According to the government salaries website, there are 40 employees in the Canton Police Department. 13 of them, for 33%, are in leadership positions. 27 are not. That leaves
And again, this is Rita Lombardi, by the way.
the ratio of leadership to employee of 1.8 employee. We are top heavy in the Canton Police Department. That's number one. Number two, I looked at the government salaries for 2023, and I know the government salaries for 2022 are a problem. When I look at the government salaries for the Canton Police full-time employees for 2023, there are 40 full-time employees. Of those employees, 28% raked in 38% of the 6.9 money spent to those people. Those people averaged 11 employees on the Canton Police Force, averaged $240,000 a year. Now, if they were all in senior level positions, maybe that's okay. 3 of them were patrolmen. We have 3 patrolmen on the Canton Force that are making over $200,000 a year. So not only are we top heavy, we are allowing employees to make $240,000 on a patrolman's salary. There's something wrong with that. I'm all for people making overtime. I'm all for everything else that they get. But something is wrong when we have 38% of the money going to 11 people. We all know that this town is a generational police family town. And there's positives to that, but there's also negatives. When people grow up together, go to school together, play sports together, and even go to family gatherings at other police family homes, that causes a problem. That's too much togetherness. You'd never find that in a private sector. It does not have diverse thinking.
I mean, to be fair, there is a different word for that, but I'm not going to say it either. But I think y'all know what that word is.
And it has the problems that we are seeing today. So with the audit that's coming, it has to be transparent all the way. We did the scope in an open environment. We now need to do the interview process and evaluation process in an open format if we are going to heal this community and rebuild trust. There's something wrong with our police
All right,
makeup.
Mr. Body, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Time is up.
I asked a
We have
question.
time for one more. And Mr. Hunter, we'll give you another chance.
So then Turtle Boy calls in as a pseudonym called Wade Hunter. And I'm not, you guys can watch the rest of this clip, but I wanted to highlight that because it was interesting because this is, I wanted to, again, I know I'm flip-flopping back and forth a lot, but I want you to get that full understanding of, okay, this is what happened Kevin Albert wise, okay, and like how is this all kind of tied in together so you can see the very close togetherness and how people seem to, make mistakes and get a slap on the wrist, get their jobs back with no harm, no foul, or sometimes even get promoted. Now, what's interesting is right now, Kevin Albert, brother of Kevin Albert, Chris Albert, the guy in the middle with the glasses who looks like somebody posted today on Twitter X that he looks like Junior Soprano. And I was like dying laughing because I just finished watching The Sopranos today and it was like perfect timing. So it was really funny. I'm like, he does look like a little bit like Junior Soprano, except he's not as cool as Junior. So he's going to talk about Canton promotions, the Canton PD promotions and retirements. And then I'm going to show you a couple of more things before we close out today's video so you can see exactly what Rita was talking about in terms of how much these people are getting paid, how much money is going into the Canton Police Department, and how many of these people are making well above what they should be making. And there's been a lot going on in terms of people committing fraud within these police departments in Massachusetts, in neighboring towns as well too, that are clocking overtime. I mean, that's part of Matthew Farwell's indictments as well too, is his fraud for clocking overtime or clocking in when he wasn't actually working or on the job. And instead, he was using his patrol vehicle to do disgusting things to Sandra Birchmore. So this isn't just an isolated incident to Canton and the police department there, but this is going on throughout a lot of different police departments. And not only, to be fair, just in Massachusetts, all over the country. But I'm glad she pointed that out because this is a nice jump to what they're going to address now here at the Canton Select Board meeting.
I move that the board consider the approval of personnel action forms following police retirements in FY 24 through present. Scott Lenhart, Eric Wade, Paul Gallagher, and Paul Petro.
So remember that name I told you guys to remember? Paul Gallagher? The guy who was on that between Trooper Proctor and Kevin Albert? Paul Gallagher, ironically, is going into retirement.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. And again, this is just the personal action form for retirees. So we wish these officers the best in their retirement. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Roll call vote, Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. McCourt,
Yes.
Ms. Boyden,
Yes.
Mr. Albert,
Yes.
chair as well, 5-0.
So next up, as I make a motion to consider the approval of personnel action forms for the following promotions.
So then they talk about promotions. Now, before we get into the promotions period, again, I just want to do this in chronological order. I want to pull up, this was a tweet from Olivia Lambeau literally last night before I recorded my video from yesterday. I was going to try and squeeze it all in, but it's so much, guys. But yeah, if you want to listen to Turtle Boy phoning in as Wade Hunter, allegedly, you can do so by checking out that other clip that I can share it too in my description box, so you can find it easy. But yeah, so Wade's question is a good one. So this is one of the things that Turtle Boy asked. How does a man like Michael Lank, or Michael Lenka, if you tuned in, or Paul Gallagher get paid so much when they can't so much as find one of 45 plus pieces of taillight allegedly at the scene, and especially after they dropped the ball so badly on Officer John O'Keefe's unaliving investigation? So this is how much Lank made in 2014, 2014, 2023, $249,000 and $61. And Gallagher made $322,389 in 2023. How does that possibly make sense? 3 for a lieutenant? And this bothered me so much because I'm going to show you the list that Olivia Lambeau pulled. And thanks again, Olivia, for sharing, because, great reporting. The average salary of a police lieutenant, in the United States alone, and then isolating that to Canton. So this is the average in the United States is between $75,000 salary per year annually. And again, it's that's just base. That's not including overtime, which I get. That's fine. And $149,000 per year. The majority of police lieutenant salaries range from 75 to 149, with the top 10% earners making $184,000. So that $322,000, that's almost double than the national average of the top 10% earners in the United States. So what about in Canton? As of September, and this is in Massachusetts, the average salary for a police lieutenant in Massachusetts is $127,609 per year. The 25th percentile is $82,000, and the 75th percentile is $162,700. Chief of police makes anywhere between $100,000 to $165,000. And police captain pays 87 to 172 in Massachusetts. This is the average for police lieutenants. Wild. This $129,888. This is $129,888 more than the highest paid employee in the entire town of Canton in 2022. So not even just the highest in the department, but in the entire town. Remarkably, numerous individuals who work at the Canton Police Department and/or had some involvement in the John O'Keefe unaliving investigation moved up the pay ladder in response to this wretched response to a fallen brother in blue. Between 2022 and 2023, 8 Canton police officers with some involvement or connection to the Karen Reed case / O'Keefe unaliving investigation moved onto the list. So this is between the exact investigation, the exact period. 8 of these people who did a bang up job with this investigation moved onto the list of the town of Canton top 30 employee salaries. In this, is this the appropriate response to leaf blowers, solo cups, and stop and shop bags in an unaliving crime scene investigation? And this is what she's referring to. So I'm going to pull this up in a separate tab just so we can zoom in a little bit more and you can see. But who do you see at the very top? Paul Gallagher. So not only is he earning a disgusting amount of money, and you can't convince me that's all real overtime. Like, give me a frickin' break. He is the number one earner in the entire town. The same guy who's now retiring, collecting on his retirement. Fascinating. Then we got Michael Lank, who's also a lieutenant at $249,000, which again, going back to what we just took a look at, that's over like 50 or 60,000 more annually than the average police lieutenant in Massachusetts. Police of chief, $212,000. She's also making well above. And again, this is 2023 versus 2022. We don't even know what the 2024 stats look like. And I'll be curious when they are publicly displayed. And then our boy, Kevin Albert, $176,388. Stephen Bellini, who was also on the thread from Trooper Proctor's testimony as a patrolman. So let's look up what the average salary. Now, with Kevin Albert, to be fair, he would be, I guess, considered on the top 10% earners. But I mean, for a guy who's misplacing his firearm and badge and has to hit up his boy the next day and be like, oh man, I was so messed up the night before. Do you have it? Wins face, like, do you think he's really worth being part of that top 10% earners of being a lieutenant, a police lieutenant? I don't think so. I personally don't think so. But I'm curious, what is the average salary of a police patrolman in Massachusetts? So the Google says, and this makes way more sense, $62,000 a year or a little bit over 5 grand a month. And that's also according, like, if you go on ZipRecruiter, right? The highest salary is 113. And the lowest, again, because we're talking patrolmen, is $35,000. But not your boy Stephen Mullaney, who's making 167,000, so over 100 grand more annually. And altogether, I didn't mean to close out of that. Altogether, this is what all of these folks are making. Over $6 million. Now, that's not just the 11, that's everybody in this column here. But over $6 million for all of these people, including Paul Gallagher. So yes, he puts in his request for retirement. All of those other mofos, as John on the Gulf likes to call them, as well too. Then we go into promotions, but Lieutenant, I want to focus on him for a second. Lieutenant Paul Gallagher responded to the scene at 34 Fairview the morning of January 29th. Here's Gallagher on the stand at the Karen Reed trial admitting that the Canton Police Department broke and shattered Karen Reed's taillight upon removing it in the Sallyport garage. Remember the inverted video? He quickly tries to clean things up, but my guy does not have a good poker face. That's for dang sure. So, again, let's play this clip.
So Canton Police Department was in fact, at your authority, given permission to manipulate that light in terms of pulling it out of the SUV, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Canton Police Department was allowed to facilitate the removal of that light.
Yes.
And during the course of the removal of that light, that taillight was broken, correct?
That's correct.
And shattered.
Yes.
Parts of it that were falling onto the ground.
So, again, reminder, this is a guy who made over $320,000 in 2023. The number one top earner in the town of Canton in 2023 is this guy right here. Just remember that. Let's play it back a little
Police
bit.
Department was allowed to facilitate the removal of that light.
Yes.
And during the course of the removal of that light, that taillight was broken, correct?
That's correct.
And shattered.
Yes.
Parts of it that were falling onto the ground.
I don't think there was anything falling on the ground at that point.
So now we do have evidence that that taillight, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, was broken or broken more once it was inside the Sallyport in Canton PD's custody.
You're gonna have to rephrase that. I don't understand the broken more part.
During the removal process, that light was broken even more.
No.
What is that face?
May I approach you?
Yes.
And, like, not for nothing, people wonder why, like, Karen smirks and, like, you know, I get it, it turns some people off. But I mean, when you look at some of these people on the stand, you're like, how do you possibly hold back your emotions? Like, it's hard to do because you're like, wait, what? Like, did you just say, huh? And let's just go back really quick because he's essentially admitting, like, yeah, they broke it more when they removed
So
it.
Canton Police Department was, in fact, at your authority, given permission to manipulate that light in terms of pulling it out of the SUV, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Canton Police Department was allowed to facilitate the removal of that light.
I also got to make note, like, it always sounds like Lally's sitting on a whoopee cushion, but like his mouth is the whoopee cushion with all the Like, it's like, dude, just take a breath in through your nose and speak. It doesn't have to objection. Like, it's giving whoopee cushion.
Yes.
And during the course of the removal of that light, that taillight was broken, correct?
That's correct.
And shattered.
Yes.
Parts of it that were falling onto the ground.
I don't think there was anything falling on the ground at that point.
Like,
So now we do have evidence that that taillight, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, was broken or broken more once it was inside the Sallyport in Canton PD's custody.
You're gonna have to rephrase that. I don't understand the broken more part.
During the removal process, that light was broken even more.
No.
but you just ah, like, what are you doing there, Paulie? This guy, yeah, this is Canton's brightest and finest, and the #1 top earner of all employees in Canton in 2023. And it's interesting because after reading the Turtle Boy interviews of the jurors, how focused they were on the taillights, I really feel like homing in on this, like, this is great. And I think, like, I have to give credit where credit is due. Like, all of these people who are doing such great work online and just uncovering and reclipping and digging back into the trial, going back into the pretrial motions and testimony and all of that, all the transcripts. This is the stuff that the defense is totally going to be they're watching, they're listening. And they're hearing us. And I think if they zoom in on that and really focus on all the contradictory evidence in regards to the taillight, and I get it, new jury pool, new group of thinkers, but that might be a way to go, is to focus on people like Paul Gallagher. So there's that. And it's so interesting because, again, this is stuff that you're like, oh crap, I totally forgot about that. It's like, yeah, it's these little like blips and cracks that are slowly unwinding and getting us closer to the truth. Now I want to get into the promotions period. Who's up for promotion, y'all?
Joseph Savesi to lieutenant, Brendan Healy. Joseph, the,
0. Ms. Boyden?
Yes.
so next up, as I make a motion to consider the approval of personnel action forms for the following promotions. Joseph Savesi to lieutenant, Brendan Healy to sergeant. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep.
To sergeant. Benjamin Berkowitz to sergeant and Martin Dunlop to sergeant. There was a misprint there.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. So as a reminder, Canton is a civil service town. These are promotional exams, and in order to be appointed, you have to top the exam, which is what these individuals have done.
Don't you like how they have to make this disclaimer? Because who's named at y'all here? Baby Berkowitz, Benjamin Berkowitz. Which is interesting because I believe he became a Canton co-op back in 2020. And I believe, from what I've read, that you need at least 5 years. Now, I'm assuming they're not going to be immediately promoted. I mean, maybe they will, promoted into these roles. It might roll over into 2025, which in that case, it would have been a 5-year period. But let me just double on that. Yep. Yep. Yep, at least need at least 1 year of eligibility to take the promotional exam to become sergeants. To become a police sergeant, officers typically in this Massachusetts need to meet the following: service time at least 5 years of service on the force, pass an official exam to demonstrate relevant knowledge. And then they interview with the people that they need to. So this is interesting to me because 1 year of eligibility. So I mean, I'm assuming he took the exam and but like it's funny because they're like, "Oh, he took the exam." Like all these guys, they took exams, they have to take exams. They're not just being promoted via nepotism, even though Baby Berkowitz was on that list of promotions. And the reason why, you know, I think it's ironic is because it's something I'm about to show you after we finish out this clip about Baby Berkowitz.
The amount of sergeants and lieutenants is considered is a result of the police reform bill passed a few years ago that states that we need X amount of lieutenants and sergeants. And so this is as a result of some of the recent retirees as well. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Mr. Conley.
Yes.
Just like very quick to bounce off of that. This was posted, gosh, was this last week? When was this? September 4th by Mass Accountability.
Driving around.
They have a YouTube channel as well too. Follow them on Twitter X if you're on. And they're really cool because they've been just overall like trying to expose not only this department, but I think the Stoughton Police Department as well too. And they've been doing videos like this for seemingly, I think, a few years now. But this was interesting because he says, after reviewing my footage, this was from October of 22. So this is 10 months. I can't do math. 9-10 months after Officer John O'Keefe is found on the front lawn of 34 Fairview, right? Interesting. After reviewing my footage from my visit to Stoughton District Court, which is also just a weird irony, I'm also curious as to why he was there and why he was like zipping up really fast, as you will see in a second. I ran into a Canton, Massachusetts police officer, Berkowitz, badge 1614, driving an illegal vehicle which had an expired inspection sticker and a missing rear right-sided brake taillight. Oh, the irony. Now, I'm going to go and say I don't think this has anything necessarily directly to do with the Karen Reed case. Because there's been like a lot of people are like, oh my God, maybe that's the taillight. And that was some of the taillight that I don't know. I don't think it's so much as nefarious, more of an actual coincidence. But the reason why I bring this up is because this guy is going to be promoted to sergeant when he's breaking the law? As in the entire light harness, but it's okay because he's a cop and laws don't apply to them. Exactly. Does anyone know if this is the disgraced ex-Canton Police Chief Berkowitz's son or relative? And we all quickly confirmed that, yeah, it was. So let's watch this clip.
Can I get your name and badge number?
Yeah, Officer Berkowitz, 1614.
Did you know you have a bad inspection sticker?
Yep, the maintenance
Oh, you
guy's
do?
aware of it.
Oh, okay. And you're driving around just
They're
running
fixing it,
errands with a bad inspection sticker?
All right, have a good day, guys.
What
Have a
happens
good
if the public did that?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
For thee, but not for me.
So there's the missing taillight.
That's what I'm doing.
He pulled up so fast, I thought he was here for a call.
Oh, you got a bad sticker, I think, sir. Uh-oh, we got a bad sticker on the Canton car. Yeah, 2022, 8. Got a bad sticker. Look at this thing shouldn't be on the road. We might have to stop by Canton PD and put in a public records request or a complaint. This is dangerous for police officers and the public.
Yeah.
Did you see how fast he pulled in here? Guys, this police cruiser has no brake light.
Like it's gone.
The brake light is actually closed. The brake light is in the back. Look at the brake light's in the back.
I know that's hard to see.
What are we doing? You want to ask us? You can. Does it look like it? Oh, it does?
Yeah.
This brake's in the car.
So then this weirdo guy comes up and he's like, why are you filming this? Yada, yada. Like, that has nothing to do. But then, yeah, he comes back.
Oh, so you're trying to get fat?
Can I get your name and badge number?
Yeah, Officer Berkowitz, 1614.
Did you know you have a bad inspection sticker?
Yep, the maintenance
Oh, you
guy's
do?
aware of it.
Oh, okay. And you're driving around just
They're
running
fixing it,
errands with a bad inspection
All
sticker?
right, have a good day, guys.
What
Have a good
happens if the
weekend.
public did that?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
For thee, but not for me.
That's what I'm doing.
It's just like a whole taillight. And ironically, it's on the passenger side. The entire taillight. It's like you can't make this stuff up. And again, I bring this up because this is the same guy who's up for a promotion for sergeant. 2 years later, he's driving around with a bad inspection sticker and no taillight. And brings up a great point. It's like, well, yeah, if somebody on the road did that, just average Joe like you and me, you'd have to pay how much in fines? You get written up real fast. And I've had like many crappy cars that I've driven. And I've gotten many tickets for not having my inspection sticker up to date with my old trucks. Leaving it at the train station, trying to park in the back and being all sneaky. And I know that whole game. But it's like, dude, you're a police officer driving a police issued vehicle. Do you not see the problem there? And I wasn't originally going to play that. I mean, the Glare had already streamed and talked about it last week. A lot of people were wondering, oh my God, is that the same taillight in the Karen Reed case? Maybe they broke that one up. And I don't know, that was part of some of the pieces of taillight that magically revealed themselves. I don't know. I don't think that there's anything to that necessarily. One, this was I keep saying 6. This was like 9-10 months after the fact. I think it's weird and a weird coincidence, but without there being any direct evidence as to why that taillight might be missing, I don't know. I mean, it could have just been like, hey, he needs to get a new, I don't know. It could be a really simple explanation of, hey, he needs a new taillight. We need more cowbell. We need more taillight, right? But then why are you driving that car? You can't get like another police issued vehicle with all the millions of dollars that are going into these people's salaries. You can't afford to put some of that money into maybe, I don't know, the maintenance of the vehicle and making sure that it's safe for not only your officers, but for the public. Or 2, giving him an appropriate vehicle, a legal vehicle to drive. You can't get more illegal than not having a taillight on your vehicle, but also not having your inspection sticker up to date. But this is the irony of it all, guys, because it doesn't matter if you break the laws in Canton if you're a police officer. It doesn't matter. You get promoted. And that's why I wanted to bring it up in this video specifically. And I'm glad I waited because now I feel like it's just, again, it's just more of the the BS and as Rita Lombardi said, there's too much togetherness. There's too much closeness between police officers and departments together. And it is very just gross. And you can just smell the nepotism, baby Berkowitz. So with that being said, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next Karen Reed update from me. Make sure you also follow the Young Jerks. Follow Olivia Lambo on Twitter X if you were there as well too. She's done a fantastic job of just covering a lot of this stuff as well too, even on the local level as well. Yeah, Young Jerks, and there's just so many amazing creators out there who are doing a bang up job of just an actual bang up job of covering this case. So make sure you give some love over that way as well too, and make sure you hit that like button because that tells the YouTube algorithm that this is important news. I mean, it is important news. It's important to the people of Canton because at the end of the day, this is their police department. I'm making these videos from hundreds of miles away here in Tennessee, but I can bet you that the same stuff is going on here as well too, and it's inspired me to do some digging into a few additional cases as well too. I know the bulk of this channel has been a lot Karen Reed, and I want to make sure that I'm also taking some time to dig into some more local stuff here as well too, because there's just so many stories that need to be told, so many people that I hope these videos help. I hope we get the word out because that's what we're about here is just having conversations, productive conversations, and learning together, learning more about how our system works so that we can make this place a little bit safer and a little bit better.